Welcome to the community.
I'm Stephanie Fortunato, and I am the former director of the City of Providence's Department of Art, Culture, and Tourism. I am now the Special Projects Director for the Global Cultural Districts Network, which is a membership organization that connects the operators of cultural districts around the world, mostly the global north, and ACT was a member of the GCDN, so that's how I got involved with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what do you want to share about your starting at the Department of Art, Culture, and Tourism?
When I graduated, Providence was beginning their cultural planning process. So a cultural plan, in many ways, is just a blueprint, right? It is a document that sort of takes a look at the assets, the strengths of a creative community. It invites the creative community and other stakeholders across sectors to come together to talk about, challenges and opportunities. And then it sets out a goals and visions and sort of action items to help promote and strengthen and realize the fullest potential of how arts and culture can really be a strategy, not just for community building or economic development or improving the schools, and certainly I think cultural planning helps with all of those things, but really how it can be a North Star for a bigger vision about why arts and culture is important to communities.
And it sounds like a way of keeping accountability.
That's why a cultural plan really is just a set of the cultural plan really is more of a roadmap and it's a living, breathing document rather than something that's set in stone, or is law, because you want to be able to adapt and respond to the moment, right? The urgency of challenges and the opportunities that open up. I think that's really important. Shortly after we began the planning process and our assessment phase, the financial collapse happened. And so in many ways, that document really is a reflection of the moment and of the uncertainty that people were feeling. Organizations were feeling very uncertain about the sustainability of and the future growth that they might even imagine in that moment. So we did the cultural planning process, and almost the summer after we published the cultural plan, Obama released the stimulus funds to make investments in local communities. And so almost right away, we were able to have success on a major initiative in the original cultural plan to do a pretty massive youth creative workforce development program. We hired teaching artists. We worked with many of the arts and cultural organizations. They hired youth, and they did projects all across the city, some of which are still visible, some murals and some of the other amenities that were developed during that time. But it was just, it was one of those proof of concepts, right? We had a plan, we were able to make a good case to the federal government, and quite quickly we were able to get that investment, and then we were able to pass that investment on to the creative community in the form of this youth workforce development program.
I'm curious about this uncertainty moment that you experienced in 2008, or that you saw a lot of organizations, institutions experiencing in this moment.
Yeah.
Do you by any chance think that is similar to what is happening right now?
I've been thinking a lot about that, though, the opportunities that come out of that, because I think there is a piece of this where we're recreating, we're rebuilding, we're reclaiming a place for arts and culture. I think artists are really good at seeing opportunities and pushing boundaries. And so, yes, this is a moment of uncertainty, and that can be really scary, but also I think there's a lot of latent potential for artists to be able to apply their creativity and innovation to sort of find footing in new ways in this moment.
How or what do you think are the best ways to support the artists in doing that work and bringing them together with people?
I think one of the most effective ways of working with artists from the city perspective or at that city level is by amplifying what's already happening in neighborhoods. You know, we had worked with EMC Arts, and they had helped us to pilot a program of using artists as facilitators for community development initiatives. So they had this idea that we should train artists to help with community planning processes.
What are some of the venues that you've, or the formats that those gatherings have taken place? I'm really curious if these were, conversations, what forms of community engagement?
I think, you know, for any initiative, any program, anything to be really successful, you really need to do your work to make sure that there's a coalition who is coming together across issues, across sector, and is really thinking about, like, how can we do this together, right? That creates ambassadors, it creates buy-in, and it allows that coalition to invite their network. PVD Fest is a giant demonstration project. You know, it's a open call and an invitation to artists and cultural bearers to really think about the city and to think about how their practice could be the change to make the city that we want. You know, it's a sort of a joyful coming together when at its best. And you know, I can't even. There are like literally probably 1,500 community engagement projects if you think about the festival in that way, because so many artists from near and far have participated in the festival over the years. We did festivals in 2012 that I truly believe sort of changed the way that people saw public art. It allowed people to engage with the facades of the city in a different way, and then eventually led to the Public Art Commission, the Art and City Life Commission being formed, the activation of the Percent for Art ordinance for the first time in 40 years, and to a whole host of public art projects that have really helped to support a new generation of public artists here in Providence, you know. But it was those demonstration projects that led to the policy, that led to the investments, that led to the artist opportunities. You did ask me a question, and I just want to answer it.
Yeah.
I want to say this to you. In Pawtucket, they took a top-down strategy to sort of the art-centric policies that they adopted, and they did that by really working on creating live-work spaces in those mill buildings, and inviting artists to live in the city of Pawtucket. And they had a couple of other initiatives, but it was more of a top-down strategy. And in Providence, I think the approach that we've always tried to take is both top-down and bottom-up, and really to find ways for people to meet in the middle. So my most effective community engagement strategies are really those in which we had sort of the leadership and influencers who were there saying, yes, this is important, but we also had the groundswell of community support and the artists who were also present saying, yes, let's do this together. I'm sorry, Hernán, I cannot help but start with a history lesson, and you can cut it out later on, but it's just who I am, so I just have to do it. In the mid-90s, the city established the first arts and entertainment district in the downtown, so the Down City Arts and Entertainment District, which is really a tax incentive, right? It said to working artists that if you live and work in downtown Providence, you will not have to pay income taxes on the original works of art, and you will also, your patrons won't have to pay sales tax. 2002, when Mayor Cicilline ran for office, the arts community organized a debate, and they made arts and culture, you know, the topic of that debate, or and they basically held the mayor accountable. And so from that in 2003, he started the Department of Art, Culture, and Tourism. But, you know, at the time, arts, culture, tourism was in the mayor's office. And so they did things that sort of fit in with the mayor's agenda, and used arts and culture as a reason to bring the community together, as a cultural tourism strategy, helped to incubate some emerging arts organizations. Mayor Taveras came into office and moved us into economic development. So again, there's always this relationship between, or not always, but often, there's this relationship between arts and culture and the creative economy. And then Mayor Lorza moved us into the planning division. I think what I was thinking about was who are the players who are making investments in artists. And so we have RISCA at the state level. We have ACT at the city level. ACT is a municipally based local arts agency, so it is supported by taxpayers. It's supported by the city of Providence. There's no private advocacy partner who is advocating for increases in investment at the state or at the city level. And again, it's falling to the public sector staff to make the case for those kinds of investments.
When you're talking about the investments that are needed, what did you see, or what do you see are those?
Capital. You know, I mean, artists need to have a living wage, and I think that that's something that has been aspirational for a long time here in Providence. Another thing pretty consistently that I find that artists need is space. So that is both space to make art in studios as well as housing, right? You need stable housing in order to be able to really thrive in any setting, but certainly artists need to be able to have that stability in order to be able to make work. In truth, you know, Waterfire was a response to the Riverwalk. So the city and state came together to create the Riverwalk, and that took, 2 decades. They created that beautiful space. They daylighted the river, and nobody was using it. And so Barnaby Evans saw the potential to use art as the reason to bring people downtown. And fast forward 25 years, they announced the Waterfire season, and occupancy at the hotels goes up, and everyone talks about, what a successful cultural tourism strategy that is.
Does the city have the power to...
The city have the power to... You worked for ACT, right? You know that you were there with me for many, many, many months. But yes, what do we have the power to do?
My role was...
Magic wands.
No, right? I'm really curious about the wall that sometimes artists may run up against when doing work in specific neighborhoods, and so value seems to go up, and then people from outside that neighborhood move in. So I wonder if, and this might be, a different department altogether, but I wonder if the city has the ability to somehow curve that, or be intentional about that, or if that's something that the city itself is also running up against a wall of public property, maybe?
Yeah. The way that we saw it most frequently at ACT, and the thing that I can speak about most closely, is through the temporary use of public space. There are creative staffers in every department in the city who want to be able to say yes, because we want to live in a creative city where artists are able to thrive. From the city perspective, we want to make sure that people can come together safely, that they can gather safely, but we want to do that equitably. And so, ACT, in my time there, we spent a lot of time really making sure that people could access public spaces for just a wide variety of arts and cultural uses over time. One of the things I think that we need here in Providence, maybe even in Rhode Island, that we do not have is like a social enterprise greenhouse for creatives. So often we have artists who are coming to the city, they have a great idea, they may or may not have an actual business plan to go with that. We spent a lot of time working with artists to get that idea onto paper, to be able to pitch it to investors and financiers and whatnot. But really, we would often try to refer artists to the different small business agencies that are part of the ecosystem here, Small Business Administration, to Commerce, to the Center for Women in Enterprise. And some artists were successful in being able to navigate those systems and get the resources that they needed to start their business, on a good foot. But it's the square pegs, round hole situation, in which often you're navigating systems in which people don't understand truly what it means to want to open a theater. What are the particular conditions that are needed for that space to be developed appropriately to support the performing arts, right? And there's a whole host, you can imagine, all of the creative entrepreneurs, every idea that you ever had. So I do think that someone who is skilled in economic development and workforce development, and who is really able to work one-on-one with artists and others to help them create plans which will then become businesses that can thrive in our community. That's something that's missing, and I don't see a provider who's able to fully be able to provide those services for the artist community, and I think it's an important one. I don't know that I've fully been able to contextualize my recent experience. Maybe that's what it is too.
Your recent experience where?
Like at ACT, you know, I mean, it's my time at ACT was so fruitful, and it was so, it was just like so full of so many opportunities to help explore and work with artists to develop their projects and facilitate community processes and put arts and culture at the center of that. I had the opportunity to work with so many different kinds of partners, you know, from public sector to funders to artists to, like, you know, classroom teachers. I mean, like, you know, really the whole spectrum of the creative ecosystem. I've worked on a project that has allowed me to come in contact and to understand that contribution to the creative ecosystem. And yes, I'm having a really hard time contextualizing that because it led me on so many journeys, you know. PVD Fest alone, like the years producing that festival and seeing it go from the first NEAR Town grant to the experience that we had in June of this year, which was such a beautiful and more refined. I'm really proud of the city's commemorative works policy. That's something that was an issue that I worked on pretty much for my whole time, you know, as special projects manager, as deputy director, and then as director. There were always these issues and conversations that people were coming to ACT to talk about it, to talk about monuments or markers in their neighborhoods that should or shouldn't be there. And we were always navigating these conversations with all these different departments because there's no one way that a commemorative works makes its way to the public realm. And I like kind of stuck with that process through my whole career, and we were able, through the public art master planning process, to identify that we needed this, you know, special committee for the review of commemorative works, and we were able to impanel that and put in place a policy that's going to be part of city government, sort of in perpetuity, through the lens of the stuff that we make, you know, our art, the culture, that the meaning that we make out of it, you know, and to think about what are the stories that we tell, what are the stories we want to tell, what do we want to be remembered for. I think that's really powerful. So anyway, these are the things that I'm really proud of, but there's some intangibility to that, and I think that's okay, you know.
Definitely, it's really, I mean, I think it's profound what you are revealing about your experience there. I really appreciate it.
I mean, for me, the work that I did at ACT, it was really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I mean, I'm sorry because I am just unabashed in my support for Providence, but this is a really special community of artists that live here and work here and who have made their lives here. And to be a part of that, even in any small way, is just truly rewarding and satisfying. I mean, I think, you know, the only constant in any place is change. And so I am so excited to see where Providence goes, where Providence artists take us. I am so excited about the department's, you know, current leadership, and I am really believe strongly in Lizzie's vision, and I can't wait to see what the department does next. I feel like I did what I could, you know. I left at a moment where I felt really good about where we were as a department, but really it's just a springboard for the next generation, and I can't wait to see what comes of it all, because I am sure if I know the artist community, I can't even imagine the wondrous things that will happen here in Providence.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
So
Are you
it's
kidding
fine.
me? You brought a
So
lot
good.
to the table. Thank
It's
you
so
so
nice
much.
just to be myself and not have to, you know, remember policy points for whoever.
A presentation or
yes,
something.
all of the things.
Right.
You know, yeah.
No, you can.
What were the top points?
You can shed those.
No, it's good. It's good. It's
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Stephanie,
it's
for
so
taking the time
good.
to be
Yeah,
here.
thank you for inviting me. I really do feel honored that